Dua never imagined that one simple moment, one small harmless response, could shift her life so suddenly. At 27 years and a single mother, her husband Kechi had died, leaving her with their son Kijo, who was just 6, and a 2 months pregnancy. He hadn't been a rich man, so when he passed, what he left behind could barely sustain them for a month. Life didn't give her time to grieve properly. She had mouths to feed, rent to pay, and a future to protect. So she wiped her tears, gathered her little strength, and started a tiny business at the market where she sold vegetables and eggs. Kijo was her joy in human form, a lively, bright-eyed boy who followed his mother everywhere, asking a million questions and trying to help even when help wasn't needed. After school, he would run to her. "Mommy, can I pack the tomatoes for you?" Sometimes he would scatter the tomatoes more than pack them, but Dua was always grateful for his help. His presence gave her a sense of purpose, a small reminder that she wasn't alone. Though Dua was a Christian, her faith had taken a hit the day her husband died. She had lost 5 family members before she met her late husband. She felt God had turned his face away from her. Sundays became painful reminders of what she had lost, so she stayed home for months, nursing her anger. But little by little, she found her way back to God. She wasn't too spiritual. She didn't pray for hours or speak in tongues, but she tried her best. She attended church, kept to herself, and did what she could. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened that random afternoon at the market. It was a hot day, the kind where the sun felt very close, like it was sitting on everyone's head. Dua was attending to a customer between counting change and arranging her eggs. In the middle of the normal rush, something made her look up. An old woman was staring directly at her. Not just looking, but staring. Dua frowned lightly. She knew everyone in the market. The fish sellers, the spice women, the noisy gossipers, the quiet ones, the newcomers. But this old woman, she didn't belong there. Her wrapper was faded, tied high under her chest, and her headscarf looked like something from another generation. Her eyes were the strangest part. It was sharp, cold, and deep, as if she knew something she had no business knowing. After serving the customer, Dua quickly raised her head again. The woman was no longer standing still. She was walking towards her. At first, Dua assumed she wanted to buy something. She even picked up a basket of okra, ready to show her the freshness. But the woman didn't glance at any of her goods. She simply stopped right in front of Dua, close enough that Dua could smell the unusual smell. Then the old woman asked, "My daughter, what is your time?" Dua blinked. What kind of question was that? She had expected, "How much is pepper? Do you have change? Is this egg fresh?" Not "what is your time?" For a moment, she even thought the woman had missed her words, but the woman's expression didn't change. Trying to appear polite, she unlocked her phone, glanced at the screen and said, "It's 1 p.m., Mama." The old woman's lips pulled into something that was almost a smile, but not quite. It felt like the smile wasn't for Dua, but for herself. Then, without a word of thanks or any explanation, she turned around and walked away. In confusion, Dua watched her go. Strange woman, strange question, strange smile. She shook the odd feeling. The market was full of odd people after all. As soon as she closed for the day, she picked Kijo from school, held his small hand as they went home. Everything seemed normal until the early hours of the next morning, exactly 1 a.m. Dua suddenly woke up to a sharp stabbing pain in her lower abdomen. It felt like someone had grabbed her from the inside and squeezed very hard. She held her abdomen. The pain was so intense that she couldn't lie down. She sat upright on the edge of the bed and breathed heavily. For a minute she couldn't move. Eventually, the pain slowly eased. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and tried to dismiss it. Pregnancy came with random pains, didn't it? Maybe this was normal. Maybe she just slept in a bad position. She forced herself to sleep again and managed to rest for 2 more hours before dawn. The next morning, Dua woke up feeling slightly tired, but she pushed it aside. She had a child to prepare for school and a business to run. She got herself ready, then helped Kijo with his uniform, tied his shoelaces, and served their simple breakfast of pap and akara. By 7:30 a.m., she walked him to school, hugged him goodbye, and headed to the market to set up her stall. The market was very busy as usual. Customers were everywhere, bargaining loudly, women calling prices, and children running around. Dua barely had a moment to rest. She was attending to a customer when she heard someone call her name. She lifted her head. "Mama Buto, you called me?" But Mama Buto looked confused. "Me? No, I didn't say anything." Dua frowned slightly. Maybe she had imagined it. She returned to her customer, but barely a few minutes had passed before she heard her name again. This time it was clearer and louder. She froze. That was certainly her name. Someone had definitely called her. She looked around, scanning the row of stalls, expecting to see someone waving or walking toward her, but no one was. People were busy with their own customers. No one had appeared to be calling her. Then her eyes shifted and she saw her, the old woman, standing in the exact same spot she had stood the day before, staring at her again with that same intense, unreadable look. Before Dua could even process what she was seeing, the pain started again. The same pain from the night before, but this time it was worse. It hit her so hard that her knees weakened. Dua quickly sat down on the low stool beside her stall. As she gripped her lower abdomen, she tried not to cry, but the pain felt like it was tearing through her. Her breathing became shallow, her vision blurred for a moment. When she finally managed to look up again, the old woman was gone. With shaky hands, she picked up her phone. It was 1 p.m. past noon, exactly the same time she had spoken to the old woman the previous day. Was this coincidence? Or was something truly happening to her? Before she could think too deeply, the pain intensified again. She tried to hold the edge of the table, but her hand trembled. Some of the market women rushed to her. "Dua, your face is not good. Are you all right? You are sweating. Sit properly. This one looks serious, so you have to go to the hospital," another person said. Their concern was genuine and Dua didn't argue. She packed her things as quickly as she could manage, informed Mama Buto to help her watch the stall, and took a keke straight to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor examined her, ran basic tests, checked the baby's heartbeat, and asked questions. Everything came back normal. "No issues with your pregnancy," the doctor said. "Everything looks fine. You're probably stressed. Go home, rest well, and come back if it happens again." Dua nodded, but the doctor's words didn't console her. She kept her thoughts to herself. She picked up Kijo from school, went home and tried to behave normally. She cooked dinner, helped him with his homework, bathed him and put him to sleep. By 10 p.m. she was exhausted. She fell asleep almost immediately. But at exactly 1 a.m. her eyes flew open. She sat up. Her hand trembled on the bed. The voice wasn't loud, but it was close. Someone had called her name again. Her throat tightened. Who is that?" she whispered. The pain came again, sudden, sharp and unbearable. It forced her to crawl forward and grip the bedsheet. Tears stung her eyes. She tried to steady her breathing, but it felt like something was twisting her from the inside. She wanted to scream, but Kijo was asleep beside her. She pressed her hand over her mouth and endured it. Minutes passed, then slowly the pain faded again, like it had never been there. Dua sat still, sweating, afraid to move. She didn't sleep again that night. 2 hours after the pain vanished, Dua's body gave in to exhaustion. She drifted into a deep, heavy sleep. But the moment she closed her eyes, she found herself somewhere else. She was inside a house she had never seen before. There was a group of persons surrounding her. They wore long black garments that hid their faces. Their voices rose and fell in a strange chant, in a language Dua had never heard. She tried to move, but her legs wouldn't respond. Then, through the circle, she saw the old woman from the market. The old woman stepped forward, and the chanting stopped. The silence that followed was even worse. The woman pointed directly at Dua. Her voice was calm, but every word pierced through the room. My daughter, you gave me your time. Therefore, your life no longer belongs to you. It belongs to us, and that of your unborn child. You both belong to us now. You are part of our world. As soon as she finished speaking, the figures lifted their heads. Dua's heart stopped. She could now see their faces clearly. Every figure, every single one of them, had the old woman's face. The exact same eyes, the same wrinkles, the same expression. Dozens of old women surrounded her, all looking at her with the same cold stare. Dua screamed and jolted awake. Her heart was racing so fast she could hear it thumping in her ears. For a moment, she just sat there, breathing hard, trying to calm herself. It felt too real to be just a dream. But morning eventually came. That day at the market was busy as usual. Customers were many, and people were shouting prices from every corner. Dua did her best to focus on her business. The pain hadn't come back since the night before, so she was a little less anxious. But the dream bothered her deeply. Every time she remembered the old woman pointing at her, she felt uneasy. After closing for the day and picking Kije from school, she went straight to see her friend Yena. Their friendship went back years, long before marriage, children and responsibilities. Yena was one of the few people she trusted completely. After Dua told her everything, Yena didn't laugh or dismiss her. Instead, she held her hands and prayed with her. Afterwards, she encouraged Dua to go speak with her pastor about it. Dua took her advice. Later that evening, she went to see her pastor. She narrated everything carefully, not leaving any detail out. She expected him to react strongly, or at least take it seriously, but he didn't. He listened quietly, then leaned back and said gently, Dua, dreams like these don't always mean anything. The mind plays tricks sometimes, especially when someone is stressed. Don't give it too much attention. He prayed a short prayer for her, blessed her, and told her to forget the dream and move on. Dua left the church feeling unsure, but she decided to trust her pastor. Maybe he was right. The pain hadn't reoccurred, and the old woman hadn't appeared again. So she told herself it was probably just her imagination. Days passed quickly. No strange dreams, no pain, and the old woman did not return. She began to relax a little. She didn't forget what happened, but with each peaceful day that passed, the memory felt less threatening. She continued with her life. By the seventh day, she was beginning to believe her pastor's words. Maybe it really was nothing. Maybe the dream had simply been stress. That morning, after getting ready and preparing Kije for school, she walked him to the gate. He hugged her tightly before running inside. Bye, mommy. Bye, son. Dua went straight to the market and started her day. It was busy, lots of customers buying from her. She barely had time to sit. Around midday, her phone rang. It was Yena. Yena had promised to take Kijo for the weekend so that Dua could rest a little. They talked for a few minutes about Kijo's clothes, what he liked to eat, and what time she would pick him from school. The conversation ended normally. Dua lowered her phone from her ear, but just before she dropped it into her apron, her eyes caught the screen. It was 1 p.m. Her heart skipped. A cold chill went through her entire body, the same way she had felt the first day. Goosebumps crawled across her skin, and her hands shook slightly. Then she heard her name. She turned sharply and heard her name again, louder this time. It was the exact same voice she had heard the first day, the same voice from the market, from the nightmare. Her chest tightened. She looked around quickly as fear rose like a wave. And then she saw the old woman, standing at the exact same spot she had stood before and staring at Dua with that same unsettling intensity. Dua's breath caught in her throat. Before she could even react, the pain hit her again. But this time, it was different. It was sharper, deeper, and more violent. It felt as if something unseen had wrapped itself around her, gripping her insides and pulling, draining, suffocating her from the core. Her body grew weak instantly. Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. The market sounds faded. The voices around her became distant voices. The last thing she saw was the old woman still standing there, watching her collapse. Then everything went black. When the market women saw Dua collapse, they didn't waste time. They surrounded her immediately as they shouted for help. They hailed a taxi and rushed her to the hospital. By the time they reached the hospital, Dua was barely breathing. The doctors examined her and tried everything they could. They had an emergency cesarean section, but the baby was already dead before they opened her up. They stabilized Dua and moved her to the intensive care unit. For the next 2 weeks, Dua did not regain consciousness. During this period, Kijo stayed with Yena, her husband, and their 3 children. Yena took charge of everything. Every day she went to the hospital with her pastor. They prayed for hours beside Dua's bed, refusing to accept the doctor's constant warnings that nothing else could be done. The doctors repeatedly told Yena and her husband that Dua's case was hopeless and even advised them to consider taking her off life support. But Yena refused. She held on to her faith and continued praying, believing that her friend would return. After 3 weeks in a coma, Dua finally opened her eyes. The nurse quickly called the doctor, who was surprised to find her conscious. He checked the machines again, then looked at her in disbelief. By the time Yena arrived with her husband and pastor, Dua was awake but weak. Yena rushed to her side and held her hand, crying out of relief. Dua couldn't speak properly yet, but she could hear them and understand what they were saying. As she became more alert, her hand moved to her stomach. She remembered she had been pregnant. She looked at Yena with a silent question. Yena quietly explained that the doctors had tried to save the child, but the baby was already dead before the surgery. Dua closed her eyes slowly, taking in the news. She didn't speak, but tears rolled down the side of her face. Over the next few days, the market women who had rushed her to the hospital came to visit. They were relieved she had survived. Yena continued to support her friend. She came to the hospital every day to feed and clean her up. The doctors monitored her closely, still surprised at her recovery. They admitted openly that they had already given up on her, and seeing her awake felt almost impossible to them. Dua remained quiet most of the time. She was grateful to be alive, but she could not stop thinking about her unborn child. The 2 weeks she lost in a coma and everything that had led to that moment. Her body was weak and her mind was heavy, but she was awake, alive, and still had Kijo. Dua and her late husband were the last of their bloodline. The devil had planned to wipe out their entire generation, but God had been merciful to her and rewritten the story, and that was enough. Lessons from this story. Spiritual warnings should never be ignored, but they should also be handled with wisdom, guidance, and prayer. Seek help early when something feels wrong, even if others don't take it seriously. True friends stand by you in your darkest moments, and their support can change everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Let us know in the comments what you took away from this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story soon.